Hey everybody, this is Emily Golightly from the EL Teacher Network, and I just wanted to share with you some tips and tricks for fostering interaction from a distance while we are experiencing this time of virtual teaching. So I use Google Meet in my district, and we do this to meet FERPA guidelines. We were not allowed to use Zoom, but you can still do these things with Zoom as well. It's going to be a similar process. So if you can do Google Meet, you can do Zoom, and all these platforms are pretty interchangeable with these types of activities. So to start, I'm just going to go to this join or start a meeting right here, and I'm going to enter a code. And for this one, I'm just going to say pretend meeting. And this will be a code that I had shared with my students in advance, and they know to go to their waffle and click on the little gray grid and find the Google Meet icon, which you can see up here in the left corner of my screen. They are familiar with looking for that icon, and that is what they use to have these video face chats. So they would just copy and paste the meeting link into the toolbar, click continue, and we click join, and then we'll be in the meeting. I don't have any other students in this meeting because I just want to show you how to do this. I could also copy the joining info or click add people and add them by email address through our school email. Copying the joining info, that is something that sometimes I will share with families through talking points, or if you use Remind or Dojo or something like that, you can also share with families, especially for younger children who may have difficulty joining the meeting independently. So now we're in the meeting, and one thing that I will point out is using captions. It live captions what you are saying, and it does a pretty good job. So when I'm recording a message that perhaps I just haven't had any students join that particular meeting, or I want to make sure that students who were unable to join have access to the same info, then I would make sure I recorded my chat. And obviously with permission from the other students first. You have to be careful about things like that. But when you record, a lot of times it's helpful to have that caption as one more piece of comprehensible input for your students. So I'm going to turn that off for now because I know you guys are able to understand what I'm saying. One other thing you may want to do is click on the three dots over here for more options. And that's where you can change your layout. And so if you wanted, for example, to have all of them tiled so you can see everyone at once the same size, or if you want to have the speaker largest in the center with the other participants smaller on the side, you just choose whatever works best for you. And so I always encourage my students to arrive to the chat 5 minutes prior to our start time. For example, if we're starting at 10 a.m., I'll say make sure you get in at 9:55 so you can get your settings the way you want them. That way, if they want to turn on their own captions at that time, or if they want to change their setup, they can do that. And I try to be in my chats 10 minutes prior to the chat starting for that same reason. So I'm there and ready for when the students get there. Okay, so a couple of things that I like to do to foster interaction with my kids during these chats are Kahoots and using the digital whiteboard. So those are several ways to get that interaction, not just a chat and check in or a lecture or something like that, just a regular lesson. So it gives you a little more opportunity for the kids to have that back and forth and conversation, which is really important for our English learners. So one thing that I like to do, I'm going to share my screen. So if I were with my students in this chat, I would click Present Now, which has the little arrow down here you see, and I'll say my entire screen. And I will click that image and click Share. Now my students who are wherever they are can see what I'm seeing on my screen. Okay, so that is one thing that you have to do to be able to have the Kahoot show up for them so they can see the questions and all of that. So this can be a little tricky the first time you do it. The first time I did it with all my students, it took a little bit longer than it normally does. But after they've done it the first time, it's just like that, easy peasy. Even my first graders, second graders, they can all do this pretty independently once I showed them how. So one of the things you'll want to remind them is to click the plus to open a new tab, and that is where they are going to open up Kahoot. So they would go here, type in kahoot.it, and it's going to prompt them like this, just like you would if you were playing Kahoot in your classroom. They could do this from an iPad. They could do this from a Chromebook, a laptop, mom's cell phone, anything. You can have it on free on the App Store, or you can play it from a web browser like I am right now. So that's what they would do. And then they're going to wait for my screen. They're going to see me. I'm going to click play here and just show you how this works. Click teach. And that's going to open up the screen. You can choose classic or team mode. And since we have one-to-one devices, we're going to choose classic. And this is just an idioms game that I already had loaded because we've been reviewing idioms in my groups. So when it comes up, you'll hear music. So I usually mute the lobby music just because it can be a little noisy and I want them to be able to focus and hear me. So as they're opening that second tab, they can hear me tell them what numbers to type in. So they can either copy and paste it, and it shows them www.kahoot.it. If they didn't get that web page opened yet, then this screen also shows them that information. And then all they do is type in this number, the large bold number. It's pretty easy to spot. And they put that number in, I'll copy and show you, into the game pen area. And then they would hit enter. Then it will prompt them to type in their nickname. So like my name is Emily, I would type in Emily and say, okay, go. So now I'm in the game just as if I were a student. So once all of the students are in the game, you can hit start. It will pop open a regular game just like it would in your classroom. And so, for example, I would read the questions to them. They have it open on their screen, but I also read it out loud. And I would say, what does hold your horses? Does it mean hug some ponies, run away, or wait? And they would choose their choices. So, since I'm just showing you this as an example, I'll click End Game. And as they're choosing their answers, just like in a regular Kahoot, they're accumulating points. And so the point of that really, I like to use it as review, a connecting activity. My kids love Kahoot. They actually will email me and send me messages in Google Classroom asking, can we do another chat? I want to play Kahoot, because they love that competitive spirit and they love to interact with their classmates and also with me, just to have that face-to-face sense of normalcy. So that's one of the things we like to do. I'm going to click leave. We're going to get out of those tabs. So I'm going to go back and stop sharing my screen. And another thing that I do just to mention to you guys is I'll use the chat box feature sometimes to have them type in answers. So before we jumped into a Kahoot, for example, I may say, okay, I'm going to type a question in the chat box, and I might type in, what does it mean when I say it's raining cats and dogs? And then I'll send that to the group. And then they're going to type as quickly as they can what they think that idiom means. So sometimes I'll do a chat box kind of review like that, just to get them thinking, typing, written response, as opposed to just that verbal back and forth. Because of course, most of the children that we've worked on these idioms for a while, they know, oh, it means it's raining really hard. They could tell me that quickly, but I'm challenging them to also type it out and then share their answer verbally. So I've just used the chat box as another simple way to get them writing, because I know that they're not writing as much as they were in the regular classroom because of the different style of instruction they're receiving currently. Another thing that I will always do is when we are ready to leave the chat, all of the kids' names you would see down here under my name in the people box. So just in the same place where you click chat, there's the people icon. You click on that, and when I'm ready to end the chat, I'll tell everybody, okay, say bye, Jojo, say bye, Johnny, say bye, Allison, whoever it is. And then I'm going to click their name. There's a minus sign beside their name, and then that automatically knocks them out of the chat. So that way I've ended the chat, I'm the last person in the room, and then the chat is over. So that's another way to just maintain them not going into the chat without me, just for safety purposes again. So I hope that some of these tools have been helpful for you, and I appreciate you joining me today, and good luck fostering interaction with your virtual learning.